Looking at the Republican debate stage that just happened, there was the pretty much obvious, shall we say, missing oranged elephant in the room. And of course, that was the fact that Donald Trump simply was not there. Now, his excuse for not appearing at this debate was, well, look, I'm 46 points ahead of anyone else. No one come close. No one comes close to me. No one. Even Ron DeSantis does not come close in any of these polls at all whatsoever. Currently, his four now indictments that stand against him, well, they don't seem to be stopping voters. But in a general election, that's a whole different story. And recently, there has been a lot of looking at what's going across the pond, because obviously it is the silly season, and people have been looking at, could that be the future of the Conservative Party here in the UK? We are getting to a moment where increasingly almost every single announcement, policy proposal, speech by senior Conservative figures is being viewed very much through a lens of, this is a potential campaign pitch. This is what my candidacy for the future leader of the Conservative Party is going to be. And it is undeniable at the moment, in especially, we see this over in America and really in here. What's going on in conservatism is this complete morphing of to something else. And currently we don't know what form that could take. There's a lot of people said it could go fascism. Hopefully it doesn't go that way, but something we should be worried about, something we should be concerned about. However, remember the fact that once upon a time, Boris Johnson was referred to as the British Trump. But in any upcoming future election cycle, Boris Johnson will cast somewhat of a long shadow. Boris Johnson will be expected, or will be giving his opinion on these candidates. And it is highly likely that these candidates will be going to Johnson to try and curry favor with him, to try and win this presidency, not the presidency, to win this future leadership contest. Now, obviously, it's going to be in opposition because, well, all the polls and everything do look like the Conservatives are on for a very, very big crushing defeat. So the Johnson factor is still very, very big issue in what could and how it could shape any potential future leadership contest. And all the candidates will be vying for Johnson's attention. I would gladly bet money on this, that in a future leadership contest, that Johnson is the one that ends up interviewing these candidates for the Daily Mail. It would not surprise me. For the fact that he's obviously working there at the moment would not shock me. And they will try and go and court Boris Johnson because they will want that lift that Johnson can sometimes give, especially from the voting public. Remember, 30% of the of the Republican Party still support, Donald Trump. If it had gone to a Rishi Johnson, public vote, well, Johnson might have won. It would not have been a clear win for Rishi. The Conservative MPs might have wanted, shall we say, Rishi Sunak, but there was still, and there are still, a lot of Conservatives who get to vote for their leader who wanted Boris Johnson. So The Johnson factor in any future Conservative leadership election could become a thing. And I'm not alone in thinking this. I'm not alone in thinking this. Because there was someone else who was looking at the Conservative leadership election in politics.co.uk, and they had this to say. So another lesson from Wednesday's Republicans debate is how Boris Johnson could loom large in a future Conservative leadership election, even if he is not a candidate. And I've said, we have seen that. We saw that at the first Republican debate. So Donald Trump was not present in the Republican debate on Wednesday, but the candidates were nevertheless forced at every turn to reckon with his legacy. Some candidates, like Ramaswamy, have chosen to remain close to Trump, whereas others, such as former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, have found their whole political pitch on denouncing him. One of the little-noted trends of the Privilege Committee's investigation into Partygate was how the matter, in time, could bleed into other issues, including future leadership contests. Ultimately, those positioning themselves for a future Conservative leadership race surely have eyed the potential risk in decrying Johnson. Voting against him in the Privilege Committee was a showdown, at least in the I vote, used to be against them down the line. Today, Johnson is largely an irrelevant to the national political sense, but this is it. But his past missteps could be revived in a future leadership contest as questionnaires and debate moderators seek to emphasize the dividing line between these contenders. And this is where Johnson will loom large. He will be a long looming shadow. And make no mistake, Johnson will try and insert himself into this contest in some way, shape, or form. He probably will not. He will not. Well, never say never, as they say. Certainly, at the next one, he will not run. But absolutely, Johnson will take any opportunity he can to snipe from the sidelines, because that is what Johnson used to do prior to becoming a politician and especially MP. That is what he used to do all the time. Just snipe from the sidelines, sort of, fling his, get his trebuchet out and just launch something across the fence and just see what calamity it can cause. That's what Johnson will go, I think, back to doing, certainly for this. But what will the candidates think? And I think this is where they also get it right as well. So the enduringly ambitious Penny Mordaunt, for example, has been critical, as any senior Conservative, of the former Prime Minister. She voted in the initial Privilege Committee report after leading it through the Commons. That may be very right. You might see Boris Johnson go after someone like Penny Mordaunt, saying she shouldn't be the leader of the Conservative Party. You could see Boris Johnson writing columns about how bad she is. And then, of course, what about the other two big people? Because at the moment, if you look at the bookies' favourite, it's Kimmy Badenoch. Shockingly, of all people, the bookies are putting Kimmy Badenoch as the favourite to win. And the other person who's there as well, Suella Braverman. So it could be Mordaunt, Badenoch, and Braverman. It could be this 3-horse race that we see in the upcoming leadership election. But that's, of course, if they retain their seats. We'll see what happens, of course. But on to this. So potential future rivals like Kimmy Badenoch and Suella Braverman have opted to abstain on this vote, since the Home Secretary may emerge as a purist on Johnson. Badenoch has been in the past criticised by loyalists for being one of the many ministers who resigned from his government in a bid to hasten his resignation as PM. So, could the Johnson factor be an effect at the next Tory leadership contest? I think it will be. I think it will absolutely be. And not only just at the leadership contest, it is absolutely going to be a big factor in the upcoming Tory, the upcoming general election. Oh, absolutely. Expect Johnson to either go really quiet or he is going to be buying a lot of trebuchets in the next coming weeks, building them ready and having them loaded, ready to go for the next general election. Because oh boy, there would be no bigger pleasure for Boris Johnson to write column after column after column how he would be fighting this general election, how he would be the perfect candidate, how Rishi is failing and how he would be succeeding. And of course, eventually, when Rishi loses, oh, this is how I would have won. This is how fantastic I could have been. Oh, aren't you all sad you got rid of me? And then, of course, maybe a door might open, just a tiny crack to begin with, to maybe his eventual return to politics. Maybe not this parliament or the one after, but, in the 2030s, possibly. So, as I've said before, we haven't seen the last of Boris Johnson. We have not seen the last of Boris Johnson at all. He will cast a very, very long shadow over the Conservative Party and will have a fair amount of influence, certainly at any upcoming Conservative leadership contest, just as we are seeing in America with Donald Trump. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, we'll see you all next time.